By 2011, Freddy Krueger was gone. The remake had come and gone in a matter of weeks. The sequel talk evaporated, and one of the most recognizable villains in horror history just stopped existing. The movie made over $100 million on a $35 million budget. It still killed the franchise.
It's the biggest piece of dog shit.
The reception was so overwhelmingly negative that New Line Cinema walked away from the property entirely, and Freddy hasn't been on screen since. A horror icon who once sold lunchboxes and had his own TV show, wiped out by a single reboot that got almost everything wrong.
Found you.
By the mid-2000s, Platinum Dunes, the production company founded by Michael Bay, Brad Fuller, and Andrew Form, had turned horror remakes into a reliable business model. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre in 2003, the Amityville Horror in 2005, Friday the 13th in 2009, all profitable. The formula was simple. Take a recognized horror brand, update the visuals, cast young faces, keep the budget modest, and let the title do the marketing. New Line Cinema owned the Elm Street rights. This was the studio literally nicknamed the house that Freddy built. The original 1984 film had rescued New Line from obscurity and turned them into a legitimate player. It grossed $57 million worldwide. That's the kind of return that builds a studio. After watching Platinum Dunes print money with other people's horror icons, the math was obvious. They brought the team on board around 2008, with a target release of early 2010. Before settling on a straight remake, the studio kicked around other ideas. A prequel exploring Freddy's origin, a direct sequel to Freddy vs. Jason. Both fell through, and Platinum Dunes landed on a ground-up reboot. The screenplay went through multiple hands. Wesley Strick and Eric Heiserer both worked on the script, and the core tension came down to one question. How dark do you go with Freddy?
I'll get you, my pretty, and your little soul, too. That is one big pile of shit.
The original 1984 film implied Krueger was a child killer, and Wes Craven had initially intended the character to be a child abuser before toning it down. The remake decided to lean into that subtext and make it explicit. Freddy was a predator in this version. He abused the kids at a preschool before the parents burned him alive. That creative choice is where the entire movie starts to fracture. For the director's chair, Platinum Dunes hired Samuel Bayer, a music video director best known for Nirvana's Smells Like Teen Spirit. He'd never directed a feature film. Wes Craven was not consulted on the remake of his own movie. The casting leaned on up-and-coming talent. Kyle Gallner, Thomas Dekker, Katie Cassidy, Kellen Lutz, and in the lead role of Nancy, Rooney Mara. Mara didn't want the role. She auditioned without much investment and was frustrated when she landed it anyway. The production itself was, by her own account, not a good experience, though she's been careful not to go into specifics publicly. After the film wrapped, she seriously considered leaving acting altogether, and you can feel it in the performance. She looks like she's somewhere else the entire time. Jackie Earle Haley stepped into Robert Englund's glove as Freddy Krueger. Haley was coming off an Oscar-nominated supporting turn in Little Children and a solid run as Rorschach in Watchmen. Strong pick for the role, but between the new burn prosthetics and the way the character was written, there wasn't much room for Haley to actually act through it. Even the screenwriter wasn't happy with what ended up on screen. Heiserer said publicly in 2019 that on his first day on set, a crew member told him scenes were being changed without his knowledge. The film he wrote and the film that got made were two different things. Warner Brothers also pushed to release the movie in 3D, chasing the post-Avatar gold rush, and Platinum Dunes had to fight to keep it in 2D, arguing that a film not conceived for 3D shouldn't be converted into it.
I don't know, Jesse. You think you could turn back time?
Opening weekend told one story. 33 million in the US. The name alone carried it. Curiosity about a new Freddy was enough to fill seats on day one. Then, the bottom fell out. The film dropped 72% in its second weekend, one of the steepest horror drops on record. Audiences gave it a C+ cinema score. For context, that's a crowd that walked in excited and walked out angry. Critics were no kinder. 15% on Rotten Tomatoes. The final worldwide gross landed at $117 million, which, against a $35 million production budget, looks like a clear profit. Factor in marketing costs, and the studio still likely came out ahead. And here's the weird part. It's actually the highest grossing Elm Street film worldwide. It outgrossed every sequel. Even Freddy vs. Jason, the one everybody hates, made the most money, but none of that mattered. The appetite for more was gone. Audiences moved on, the creative team scattered, and the brand, which had survived 7 sequels, a crossover with Friday the 13th, and a TV series, was done. Rights issues made everything harder. In 2019, domestic rights reverted to the Wes Craven estate under copyright reclamation law, the same kind of provision that caused the Friday the 13th rights mess. Warner Brothers and New Line still hold the international rights, meaning any new project requires both parties to agree. As recently as 2025, New Line's president acknowledged the situation remains complicated.
You remember the first time on set when you actually saw Jackie in that makeup and what your reaction was?
It's the biggest piece of dog shit.
The original films used practical effects, David Miller's makeup work, the body bag in the hallway, the face pushing through the wall above Nancy's bed. That wall gag, done practically in 1984 with stretched spandex, became one of the most iconic images in horror history. The 2010 remake recreated it with CGI. It looks cheap. There's none of that physical wrongness that made the original version so unsettling. The entire film leaned on digital effects for the dream sequences, and almost none of them land. Freddy's burn makeup was redesigned to look more realistic, based on actual burn victims, rather than the stylized look Robert Englund wore. The intention was grounded horror. What they got was a Freddy who looked like a generic monster. Englund's Krueger had a face you remembered. Haley's version was buried under prosthetics that flattened every expression he tried to give. The remake also recycled iconic moments from the original. The bathtub glove scene, Freddy dragging his blades along the pipes, even specific one-liners pulled from earlier entries in the series. And every single one of those callbacks just made you think about how much better the original did it. And then there's the tone. The original Elm Street worked because Wes Craven understood that the dream world should feel dangerous and surreal, but the real world needed warmth. Nancy had friends. Her life felt worth protecting. The 2010 version is relentlessly bleak and joyless. There's no contrast between the waking world and the nightmare, because the waking world already feels like one. When everything is dread, nothing stands out. To its credit, the remake did introduce one solid idea: micronaps. After staying awake long enough, your brain forces itself into brief REM states, whether you want it to or not. Freddy could show up mid-conversation, in a pharmacy aisle, anywhere. It blurred the line between dreaming and being awake, in a way none of the original films ever tried. That concept actually raised the stakes. It wasn't just, don't fall asleep anymore. It was, you might already be asleep and not know it. That's the one idea from this film that deserved a better movie around it.
Can you shut the fuck up?
The script's handling of Freddy's backstory is maybe the most frustrating part. The writers made a bold choice midway through. What if Freddy was innocent? What if the parents killed a man who didn't actually abuse their children, and the kids' memories were unreliable? For about 20 minutes, the movie becomes something interesting. There's real moral weight to it. Then it abandons the idea completely. By the third act, Freddy is confirmed as a predator, and the film doubles down with explicit flashbacks. So you've introduced this possibility of innocence just to yank it away. If they'd committed to the innocence angle all the way through, this could have been something truly different. A wrongly murdered man returning for justified vengeance against the parents who killed him, with the teenagers caught in the middle. That's a movie with something to say. Instead, they got cold feet. The later Elm Street sequels understood that Freddy worked best as a showman.
This is it, Jennifer. Your big break in TV.
He cracked jokes, played with his victims, and was terrifying because he was having fun doing it. The 2010 Freddy is just grim, humorless, stalking teenagers through brown-gray dreamscapes, with nothing behind it except, what if Freddy was more realistic? Nobody stopped to ask whether realistic Freddy was something anyone actually wanted.
That's right. No one can prove I was ever here.
Mara's disengagement bleeds through the entire film. Nancy is supposed to be the emotional anchor, the final girl who fights back, and Mara plays her like she's counting down the days until the shoot ends. She went on to do The Social Network that same year, and The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo a year later. David Fincher brought her back to life creatively, and she was electric in both. Elm Street clearly wasn't giving her anything to work with.
Willie, please, Mr. Van Houten has the floor.
Platinum Dunes talked about a sequel for a while. Haley even signed on to return as Freddy. Nothing materialized. The reception was too hostile, the right situation was shifting, and the whole mid-budget horror remake wave was drying up. There was no momentum left. The remake didn't just kill the Elm Street franchise, it pretty much ended Platinum Dunes' run of remaking 80s horror properties. After this, they moved on. The Conjuring universe became the focus. Bayer never directed another feature film. He went back to commercials and music videos. Think about what this franchise used to be. In the late 80s, Freddy Krueger was everywhere. Lunchboxes, action figures, a 900 number hotline, a rap single, his own TV show. He was as mainstream as a horror villain could get. That kind of cultural footprint doesn't just disappear. But one bad remake put enough distance between audiences and the character that nobody's been able to close it since. Robert Englund has said repeatedly that he's aged out of playing Freddy. Any future Elm Street project means recasting again. And after 2010, that's a much harder sell than it should be. The Craven estate took pitches for new projects back in 2019. Nothing has stuck. Meanwhile, Halloween got its legacy sequel trilogy. Texas Chainsaw keeps getting new entries. Friday the 13th's right situation has shown signs of movement. Elm Street remains frozen.
Let's get high.
The original Elm Street films, even the messy ones, had something.
Bon appetit, bitch.
Part 4 is a blast, and Part 5 doesn't deserve the hate it gets. Freddy's Dead is the only one I'd call a miss, and even that one has its moments. But 2010 made me less interested in this franchise entirely. That's just my opinion, but I don't think I'm alone. One bad film with the wrong tone and the wrong instincts was enough to do what Freddy's victims never could: end him for good.